Hey guys, remember to like the video and hit subscribe.
Debating Destiny's semi-meme-ish article that he wrote.
It's not
Basically, it's not a meme. Basically, talking about how much better it is to rent than to be a homeowner. Most people know Destiny's opinions on homeownership and what's wrong with homeownership versus like all the investment vehicle stuff, all that kind of stuff. So, kind of giving everybody their chance to debate him on that, or slash his meme-ish kind of formatting of saying that. But if everything's all set up on your end, Destiny, I don't know if you want to do chat on your screen or not, or are you going to be good to go?
I'm good to go.
Okay. So what we'll go ahead and do then is we will start with the opening, and anybody that's listening that is on the mod teams for the chats, we're just going to link it in that regular channel again. I already linked the first poll, so when we get to that last minute, I'm going to butt in every once in a while just to let people know that polls are up, things like that, just because that was also something that was a little bit less smooth last time. But for the most part, I'll stay quiet. And Ivory Fool, go ahead and do your opening statement.
Sure, thanks, Hobbit. So housing encourages desirable pro-social behavior that renting does not. When people buy equity and a long-term commitment within their family and community, especially with low-interest fixed-rate mortgages, they have more stable relationships, better outcomes for children, have more civic engagement, and are more likely to become small business owners. If we are discussing this issue in the context of politics, we ought to talk about aggregate effects and societal benefits as opposed to individual cost-benefit analysis. If it's questionable whether or not owning versus renting is better financially for people that plan to live in the same place for the long term, that means there's a major housing supply problem that we need to solve, not that we should encourage more demographics to rent.
Let's run them down one by one. What was the first point you brought up?
All right.
You said pro-social behavior?
Yeah, but
do you live in a house?
It's the four things.
Yeah, I know.
I do, yeah. Oh, no, I rent it, but yeah, I do live in a house.
You're in a house. How long does it take you to get to your neighbor's house?
Like a minute.
Guess how long it takes me to get to the apartment next door to me? Like 10
30
seconds.
seconds?
Yeah, try 10 seconds, okay? How is the house more pro-social? Explain.
Well, so it creates like more stable relationships between just a couple. So if you have people that are living in a house, like it's probably more likely that they're going to be in a more committed and long-term relationship, especially if we're looking at like divorce rates and stuff like that. And one thing that is interesting that I found was women are way more likely to be single homeowners. And so I think just in general, women really care about homeownership more than men. And if we are looking at a society where, there's a lot of incel behavior or that's becoming more of an issue or men are becoming more and more dispirited, I think encouraging people and enabling them to own their home can help bridge that gap and make men more desirable to women if we agree that that's an issue.
Wouldn't it be better to just get
issue.
What would be more impressive to a woman is you're an incel guy who managed to buy your shoddy, disgusting $175,000 house, or you just said F it and you rented on like the 34th floor, okay, a really nice apartment with a nice view, with no mortgage.
I don't think it should be about being
obligation.
impressive or not.
Oh, what's it about
it's more
then?
about like giving people the opportunity to like have this like milestone of commitment, and encouraging people to go through that and making sure that everyone has access to that.
Milestone of commitment. The fact that you can fill out a mortgage application.
No, the fact that you like agree we're going to own this house together.
Oh.
And that we can do that.
I mean, you can sign a lease together, can't you?
Yeah, but it's way less of a commitment. That's the point.
Okay, so you think that knocking somebody up is a good way to further the commitment in a relationship because now you have a kid together? You think that's healthy?
If you agree ahead of time, then I think a big part of it is that men don't commit to women as much anymore. Okay, I don't really want to get into that too much, but like that's kind of like the idea is not that commitment itself is good. The idea is that if you have you want people to have options to commit to each other.
Don't you think buying a home together kind of eliminates those future options? Isn't that like a really big lock-in? Like, wouldn't somebody be more likely to stay in a bad relationship if they bought a house together?
No, I'm saying like this is a thing that they have an option to do, and if home ownership is inaccessible to people, then they don't have that option. It's not about having this carrot dangling. That's not what.
Sure, but we're not talking about having the option to rent a home. We're talking about whether it's good to execute on that option of renting the home.
No, but so that's what I'm saying, that I started off by saying that we want to look at the societal benefits, not the individual cost benefit analysis. So like we should make it more desirable for people to want to own a home because owning a home has all these benefits, including encouraging people to be entrepreneurs, encouraging people to be civically engaged. And I think that's a pretty big one that we probably both agree is really important right now, that like people just aren't reading the news.
True. But
That like,
I feel like you can do these things and be in an apartment. I don't think you need, like, for instance,
course.
I voted and I'm civically engaged, but I'm in an apartment.
sure.
I know
I mean-
friends, at least one, who owns a home and is not civically engaged and he didn't vote. So now what?
I'm saying on aggregate, like if you look at the studies, that people that own homes and you control for all the socioeconomic status, everything like that, owning a home increases the number of people that are willing to be entrepreneurs. It increases civic engagement. Like, and the mechanistic hypothesis is that if you're committed to a community, you're more likely to want to improve that community. And so like if you own equity in a community, like that's literally what you're doing when you're buying a house and land.
Yeah,
You're
but couldn't you also
directly
just like
incentivized.
couldn't you buy a condo?
Sure. I mean, the point is owning the home, not versus renting.
I thought the point was
I mean-
homes versus apartments. Wait, so you're saying renting a home wouldn't qualify in this world?
Yeah, because you don't benefit from the property value going up.
Oh, so this is all about just how does benefiting from the property value going up? That's the thing that causes all the pro-social cohesion and the entrepreneurship and everything?
I'm sure that's part of it. I don't claim that that's the entire part of it. I think that'd be foolish.
Really?
Yeah, just to say that the only reason why people are more civically engaged is because they want their house to be worth more.
Okay, sorry. This article was a half-meme article. Okay, I'm trying to figure out how serious the level of engagement is. Wait. let me block the
That it wasn't a meme, but the poll is going out. Okay, so in all the chats, the poll is going out. Go ahead.
Where am I
Did you want
coming
me
from?
to?
Yeah, you're just wrong. Sorry.
On what?
On everything.
Based on what?
On my feelings.
Do you want me to show you like some sort of citations?
Yeah, give me one citation.
these
Go ahead and show me your first citation. What do you got?
Okay. So using a large U.S. individual level survey data set over the 1996 to 2006 period, we showed that a 10% increase in home equity raises the probability of transition into entrepreneurship by 14%.
Oh yeah? How many of those people lost their when did that data set
In
end?
2006.
Yeah. How many people lost all their businesses and everything the next year, huh?
So then we should make it less likely that people lose, like less volatile. Like we can create
I
policy
agree.
that.
Do you know what reduces volatility? Renting versus owning, because then the volatility is all shifted onto the landlord, and I can just pay
Right,
a
but
smooth monthly payment.
I mean, the whole point is that in that period where people didn't really think that this was a possibility of foreclosure, the people that own their home were more likely to be entrepreneurs. So
Yeah, the
like,
people who
there's
felt
a
like they had
direct-
absolutely no risk to take whatsoever felt like they could invest in businesses. That's not surprising. That's because they had no risk, because the banks and the financial system for the housing market was crazy.
Next thing you're currently getting owned in the marketplace.
Give me the
of
next-
ideas.
next
His
citation.
Time has been extended.
Next citation.
Okay.
This one better not end at 2006.
So let's see. Which one is this? Right. So we found that access to entrepreneurial bank credit is easier for homeowning entrepreneurs at both the intensive and extensive margin. We saw that during the crisis, the gap actually widened between homeowners and renters with respect to their access to credit, despite the lower market value of the homeowner's collateral. So, I mean, even in the case where their housing, like the housing market is collapsing, banks are still giving preferential treatment to keep businesses afloat to homeowners rather than renters. And I'm assuming they controlled for just the total number of like debt to asset ratio and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, you would make that assumption, wouldn't you? Because it
I mean,
helps
that'd
your
be
argument, doesn't it?
It'd be ridiculous to like publish that without controlling for that.
Really? What year does this study cut? Where's the data set from?
I think it's looking at the global financial crisis.
Oh, so the whole world. That studied the entire world.
No, I was talking about the time period.
Yeah, but what housing market and
see.
credit market was it talking about?
Entrepreneurial activity in the Netherlands.
Wow. The Dutch?
I mean, look, like when you're talking about like scientific research, it's not like there's these things don't happen immediately, right? Like
Yeah, but
it
do
takes a
you
while
think
for
Dutch
to
people
use it.
and Americans are comparable?
Probably.
Let me
like,
introduce you to a
on
concept
certain- on
called
certain aspects.
ethnic homogeneity. Have you ever heard of it before?
Sure.
And social cohesion? I'm just kidding. Okay.
So
I'm
I
here.
mean, the
no,
point
stop.
is that
I'm responding to your point. Okay.
Okay.
How would owning a home give you access to more credit? Were these people taking out like credit based on their homes, or
Yeah, that's that. Yeah, use the equity that you have on your house.
isn't the study just saying then that people that have money or have assets have access to credit? Wouldn't that make sense?
Right, but the
Like they could have any other asset or class theoretically, and they would still have access to the same credit, right? Like instead of owning a home, let's say they dumped all that money into a 401k or whatever, they'd still have access to credit. They just happen to be dumping their money into a house, right?
yeah, and the mere fact that people own the home makes them more likely to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, that makes sense. But that's just
Yeah.
because of the. I feel like
with same credit to debt ratio.
with the same credit
net
to
worth.
debt. Oh, with the same net worth.
Yeah, because you control for socioeconomic status.
I guess what I'm trying to understand is how does like if I've got $50,000 of equity in a house versus $50,000 of equity in some kind of other asset class, I don't know why having the house gives me special access to credit that I wouldn't have otherwise.
I don't think they were saying it gives you special access to credit. I think they were saying that that type of asset, that type of collateral is more preferable to banks.
Okay, that might be true, but that's a shitty reason I think to own a home.
Well, so I'm not saying that's why I'm not arguing on the individual level.
No,
I'm
I understand
saying
you're
as
not
a
arguing on the
society-
individual level. I can understand that it might make sense that banks might prefer loaning against housing collateral versus other types of collateral. I don't know how high your portfolio needs to be to have a to take out a loan against, like if you have like stocks or whatever. I will say one of the scary things about utilizing credit. Well, actually, wait, hold on. When you talk about access to credit, are people taking out loans against their home to like start businesses?
Yeah,
Is that a preferential idea, or is that a good? Do we want to encourage that type of thing?
I think so. Because I mean, it's all
Please, ma'am,
connected,
that's
especially if it's a local business.
Why do you guys keep? Oh my god, hold on. Let me turn my AC down. Hold on. Okay, hold on. Let me lock in.
Oh my
okay?
God, we're pausing the time. We're pausing the
just-
time.
I
He's
gotta lock in.
throwing.
Hold
He's
on.
getting
Fuck you.
absolutely destroyed right now,
Shut
chat.
up.
You guys are seeing this. He's literally leaving his desk. He's getting blown out by the ivory fool. Everybody can see it.
Okay, I don't know why you brought the
Okay.
Chinese. Okay, try hard student today. I can't wait till Trump gets rid of you, motherfuckers. Okay.
You
Let me
talked-
lock
this is
the
third
fuck
time
in.
you've
I'm
talked to
locking in.
him.
I'm locking the fuck in. I'm locking in now. I'm locking in.
The 1 minute.
Yeah.
Go.
Restart it.
Go.
Okay. My understanding is businesses. My understanding, by the way, is the polite and humble way of me saying, I know this is a fact, but I don't want to present it that arrogantly, okay? My understanding is
Go
that
for it.
businesses have a very high rate of failure, okay? If a friend came to me and he said, hey, I want to get credit for a business. I want to take out a loan from the bank, and I know just the way to do it. I go, oh, really? What are you going to do? So, I want to take out a loan against my house. I would say, that's fucked, bro, because now if your business fails, not only are you exposed on the business side, you've opened yourself personally up to liability, because if your business fails, you're going to lose your business, and now you're going to lose your house. Your life is over. Would you really recommend somebody to take out some type of loan against the value of their house when new businesses have a fail rate of like 90% over 5 years?
So, I mean, I think we both agree that renting, in terms of like the actual living conditions, aren't really all that different. So it's like if someone loses their house and they have to rent now because they took on this risk, like I think we both kind of agree that like, you know, that's fine.
No,
like, they don't
it's not
necessarily need
fine.
the house.
Wait, that's my argument. It's not fine. If I'm in an apartment and I can't pay my lease and I lose my apartment, what happens? I can't pay my lease. I get kicked out. If the landlord is a huge asshole, he probably doesn't give a fuck, but he could take me to small claims court, you know, for some part of the lease, maybe. But if I can't afford my house, whoo, we're in big trouble. I have to sell the house. I have to make up the difference in whatever the equity and the borrowed amount is. So let's say I've got a house, $1 million house. Let's say I have $50,000 in equity. Let's say that I borrow out $50,000, you know, against the equity. Now I have no equity in the house. And then let's say that I go upside down on my, no, I don't have to go upside down even. Let's say let's say that
Starting a business is not
wait.
like taking a long-term stock option or like a short-term stock option where you don't just like leverage everything and then lose more than you put in.
Well, what do you think the risk is? That's why it's risky to start a business. If you lose it, you lost.
You can lose what you put in, but you're not going to lose more than what you put in.
True.
Usually.
Well, true, but if you're starting a small business, okay, not all of us are, you know, Big Bucks McGee over here, all right, in the ivory tower of academic elitism, okay? Some people, when they start a small business, they lose that small business. It's not like they have tons of other revenue streams to pull money from. Like if you, in my mind, there's no
job.
in my they go find a job. In my mind, a person who is, I don't mean to say this word meanly, but a person who is desperate enough to leverage their house in order to get a loan, an SBA loan to start a business, is probably not the kind of person who has a bunch of capital available to them, such that if the business fails, they're totally fine. And now they've got their mortgage payment and they've got to pay off this HELOC or whatever other type of loan they took out against the value of their house. I don't know if that's a great way to start a business, is borrowing
they
against
pay it
your...
off by foreclosing the house.
That's a big deal, because now you've got to foreclose.
It's a big deal, yeah, but it's not life ending. Like, you can just go rent, like you said.
Yeah, but now you're renting with a
rent.
foreclosure under your belt, so your credit is going to be fucked, and you run the risk of, depending on what
Okay, I don't know if foreclosure is the right word, right? Because if you're just releasing the house, if you're selling the house and you're paying off the loan, like, you're not. I don't think that hits your credit. Like, you just mean,
I'm so sorry. Foreclosure is when you default on the loan and then the bank repossesses your house to make your shit straight. You mean you're selling the house?
What I mean is like the business failing, and you have to like, give up the venture, right?
Yeah,
I don't think.
But the problem is, so anytime, one of my biggest criticisms of using homes as wealth vehicles is you lack any diversification. You are highly over invested in a single asset class and truly in a single asset, right? So if you're forced to sell your home at a non-preferential time because you're trying to make good on a loan, you might be completely fucked. So you could be upside down on the loan. Maybe your home has lost a little bit of value. So not only are you selling the house now at a loss, which would suck depending on how early you are in the ownership cycle of it, you're selling it at a loss. You have to make up the difference to the bank. You might do that on a payment plan or something. And you're and then you're also like trying to find a place to rent and live on top of that. It's just, you're exposed to so much more risk on owning the home. Generally, the risk isn't a big deal, but if you're starting to leverage the risk, what? Go ahead.
You're conflating entrepreneurship with like homeownership as one investment vehicle, right? Because the thing that is putting you under is not the fact that your house price is going down. What's going under is the fact that your business failed. So like, that's completely separate from how good of an investment the house is. And I also
correct.
Think
wait. I agree with you. One thing at a time. I agree with you that those two things could be separate, but you wanted to connect them in the form of arguing that owning a home gives you access to more credit. So I'm attacking that argument.
So I don't know exactly what the mechanism is behind why do homeowners
have access to more credit?
Well, so that's one possible explanation, but the I don't think there's been enough studies on this direct connection between entrepreneurship and homeownership that we can definitively say what exactly the causes and mechanisms are. But I think just
we can ditch it then if you want. We can eject that argument.
Well, I mean, I still think there's enough studies that there is that people have noticed this effect and have articulated it. And
I'm sure you can have access. No, I mean, I agree with you, right? We could also do an access, or we can do studies showing that, like that in 99% of circumstances, men could kill their wives if they wanted to, but that doesn't mean I would say that this is something that should happen, right? Like, I'm sure there are a lot of studies showing that homeowners have access to more credit than non-homeowners, even all else equal, because a house is, like you said, it's probably a preferential collateral vehicle because you know the person has to use it, right? Like if you're going to take a loan against your home, I know where your home is. I can always go and repossess it. It's a secure loan, right? I agree with that. I just don't know if that is anything that moves me much in the direction of home ownership, because the types of loans that you would be securing with the equity in your home are things that I would almost always almost universally recommend against doing. And I feel like most people would. If somebody's like, oh, I'm starting a new business, I took out a loan against my house to do it, it's like, whew, that's not a great one, I think.
I'm not following the logic.
Real quick. Go ahead, and this will be kind of our closing. Ivory, very good job, but go ahead and bury Destiny one last time.
Fuck you.
So I think that, as we're thinking about housing and it's like becoming a broader and broader political issue or a more hot topic, and people are focusing on how we can, reduce the barriers to increasing supply, I think we really ought to frame the conversation around the societal benefits of homeownership. And, as if housing supply is, if it's like the fact that it's a question that owning a home versus renting long-term, same area, it's like, it's kind of up to personal preference between renting and home ownership. Like that's a major issue because home ownership should always be way better for people living in the same area long-term. And so I think that's really what we ought to be focusing on, especially that when there's, blossoming evidence that there's all these pro-social effects like civic engagement, entrepreneurship, and handling growing tensions between men and women.
Do I give a final rebuttal or?
Yeah, absolutely. We are going to be putting out a poll of who won this debate as well between the Ivory Fool and Destiny. That is going to be spammed in the chats.
Okay. Wait, for future people, I feel like they should probably have the final say since I get to stay here the whole time, right?
That's fine.
Okay, listen. I didn't know you were coming with the hardcore to data points, okay? On a serious level, I would obviously we went back and forth on the entrepreneur point. I would argue against that. On to the pro-social point, I would argue that any type of pro-social behavior that is encouraged by, or civic engagement that is encouraged by home ownership, I would say is like soundly defeated by even like a simple glimpse of home ownership around the world. My understanding is Americans have some of the lowest civic engagement in the world, and I think we have some of the highest home ownership rates in the world. You don't see Americans being far more civically engaged than people in Germany or France or Poland or the United Kingdom, despite the fact that the majority of these people live in apartments versus Americans who all live in homes. I don't think that when it comes to like incels and stuff, I don't think that the only way to defeat this is with home ownership. Again, in every comparable European country, but we can compare ourselves to them, and we want things like their public transport, or we want things like their healthcare systems. They don't seem to have the housing component as like a necessary part of their existence. So I just don't feel a very strong pull towards the idea that that having a home like alleviates these issues. It might in America, but I would argue if it does, it's just because that's like a cultural norm, and it's a cultural norm we need to change.
So go ahead and get the last word, Ivory.
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk about. I didn't expect to have a last word, so I wasn't really thinking about one. But I just wanted to say I appreciate having the conversation and starting it. And if you ever want to talk in the future, I'm down.
Okay.
Thank you, Ivory Fool. I will drag you out of here. Neith, you're going to be coming up next. Thanks again, Ivory.
That guy. Don't ever let that guy back on any of these ever again.
Okay, so we are going to be. Are you ready for the next one?
I'm ready.
Sweats
Get me
to
in,
dude.
okay?
He is
Get me the.
sweating.
Get
I
me
don't know
in.
if you guys
I'm
see
not.
this.
I'm ready.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
locked the. I'm locked in. I'm locked in now. Go. Go. It's not going to be nice though. It's not going to be easy. Oh wow, what's up, Solid Snake? Nice eye patch.
Oh, thanks. I don't have an eye patch in real life, but it's to drawing my camera.
Oh, we got the Carney book. We got the Ezra Klein book. What is up, my neoliberal?
I am fully neoliberal pilled.
And you're gonna come and argue houses? How can you even do this? Holy shit! It's like it's like you're coming to argue
He's
Christianity
he's
with an
already
Ayn
trying to
Rand book
take
in the
over
background.
the
Let's go.
conversation.
What do you got? What do you
Let
got?
him
What do
get
you
his
got?
opening
Yeah,
statement.
go ahead,
and
open.
Daphne, Jesus, come on.
I think my opening statement is just or obviously like there's an investment aspect to housing, but I don't think that's like the most important one to discuss. I think the idea of owning a house is a democratic idea, and maybe the idea of renting is an idea of like a kind of like a dictatorship, like a despot kind of thing. You're at the whims of your landlord. You can either have a good landlord or a bad landlord, and that's how you will get your enjoyment out of renting it. And then with the democratic aspect of owning a house, you're free to fail or succeed, and so you can build wealth or not build wealth. Sorry, I don't want to make that argument. But you can build up a future that you want, and you are in control of that future by owning a house rather than renting. That's my introduction argument.
My counter retort is nothing is more fascist than owning your own home. In an apartment scenario, what happens? You wake up in the morning, you find out that rents are down in comparable apartment complexes. There's pressure on your landlord to decrease rents. Or maybe in 2 months when your lease is up, maybe you dip, maybe you bounce, maybe you get the f out of there. What could be more freeing than the ability to change your abode every 12 to 16 months, depending on your lease arrangement? Versus, let's say that you are one of the unfortunate millennial or Zoomers that had to buy a home in this high interest rate environment, and now you're locked in on a 30-year, 7%, 7-inch dildo pumping in and out of you for 30 years. What is more fascist than the bank that owns that loan never renegotiating with you? You could refinance, I guess, if the interest rates go down. But I feel like, ironically, I feel like when it comes to renting, I feel like you have a little bit more freedom. There's a little bit more, if you want to take the kind of democracy aspect, I think there's more competition. Landlords are, to some extent, motivated to keep prices somewhat low or to be somewhat competitive on amenities or services. Whereas, yeah, for the home, as soon as you lock in, you're locked in for 30 years. The bank doesn't give a f. You just have to make your payments and then you're done.
I 100% agree on the mobility aspect, but I think like once you have a family, I think that's when you kind of want to settle down and maybe stay in one city rather than moving around. I guess it depends on your job at the end of the day.
You can move around in the city. You can find a different apartment down the street.
Well, no, that's true too, but I guess like it's a big hassle to move. I actually just moved into my new apartment here, and I wouldn't really want to have to move every single year and like get all the couches and all the furniture moved around all the time. It just seems like a big hassle.
It would be, and you wouldn't want to have to move, but having the option to move, that's what freedom is
Well,
about.
no, I
That's what
totally agree. Like
democracy
the
is
option
about,
to move
right?
is good too, but like I don't know, like I've been seeing, or like the stereotype of like a dad, he's like mowing his lawn like Saturday morning or whatever, right? And I think like doing like those DIY repairs on your house, like it just speaks to a certain character of people, and like they always want to be in control of like their own house and their own or destiny, has to say, or whatever, right? But
yeah, but
I just
imagine
think
if
like,
instead of mowing this horrible plant that you grow in the front of your house to show all the other neighbors how trim you can keep your plant, imagine inside you take up woodworking or guitar playing or painting Warhammer 40K figurines, right? At the end of a year, you know, what does your neighbor have to show for this? The homeowner, the mortgageoid, right? He's like, look at how thin my grass is. Meanwhile, you have a full collection of Warhammer 40K painted figurines on homemade custom wood tables, okay, that you can serenade with your guitar skills that you've picked up in your free time, because you don't have to waste all your time cleaning your gut. Do you know how many men, do you know the percentage of homeowners that get injuries from cleaning their gutters every year?
it's got to be 50,
35%. You would see that episode of House with the one guy who falls off the roof and Cuddy gets real mad and I'm just saying.
No, I mean, I totally agree with that. I'm just saying it speaks to a certain like group of people who want to own their own house, and I don't think like we should be discouraging them from like exploring that opportunity. And I think like you always have a nuanced opinion. Like it's good to like own or rent, just depending on like your situation.
I guess the thing that I don't like being serious, the thing that I don't like is that it feels like culturally there's so much baked into home ownership that makes it seem like an inevitability that you have to own a home to get these things. Like even the thing that you said, like having an investment in a community, well, you have to own a home to do that. That has to be an American idea, because we're the only country that has that idea, right? I don't think I've ever been to a European country where the people are like, oh yeah, like I'm here in an apartment, so I don't give a about our politics. Like that's just such a mind-blowing thing to me. And I'm actually curious, I don't have these numbers on hand, but I'm curious who, that would actually, there's a counter argument. What to say, who is more civically engaged? People that live like in rural areas, like in homes, or people that live in city areas and apartments? But I bet the actual answer to that is probably people who live in city areas and have houses is probably the answer. But
I don't really subscribe to the belief that like you have to own a home to be civically engaged. Like I did a lot of door knocking. I'm Canadian actually, so I don't think it's
I figured that out. Don't
or
worry.
I might be a little different with the markets. But or like I guess like your civic engagement is all just based on like how much invested you feel in the community, and whether or not like you rent or like own a house. Like it's all just about how much you care or how much time you have to do all these things or whatever, right? And I think it's hard to change the idea of like owning a house, because I actually was trying to do research before this into the idea of like home ownership, and I read this dissertation saying that like the American dream was never originally to own a house, and it was basically like all these European immigrants who migrated from Europe post Reconstruction who wanted to own a house as they saw it as a way to become middle class rather than low wage laborers or whatever, right? And it didn't end up like helping them become middle class, but it satisfied their like desire to have control over like that jump into becoming middle class, in a sense. Like middle class people just, it was like 50-50 renting and owning. So
and I can understand that back in when we say Reconstruction, do we mean like post Civil War? Is that what we're talking about?
Like 1870s to like 1920, I think was the observation.
I wonder back then how much access.
We're going to go ahead and send the poll out, okay, for our Mr. Mooten in better light from Canada here. Going out.
Mr. Mooten, yeah.
What do you mean, damn?
No, I just didn't think I looked that much like Mr. Mooten. But
okay, well, you said damn like negatively there. You should be like Mr. Mooten. Damn.
I get told I look like people all the time.
Damn.
So it's funny. It's funny that people always say that, but it's all good.
Now you're making it sound like a concession. No, it's all good. It's okay.
No. I mean, you should
be excited.
More often, then
okay, you should
be
excited.
If you was off the stream more often, then I'd be more excited.
Oh, true. Okay.
Yeah, just joking. All right. But yeah, no, I don't think like you have like a huge like, or like I don't think like there's good faith arguments to say like owning is like 100% better than renting, in a sense. It's just kind of like what your preferences are, like what you have like a need for in life. And I just think like there's a huge majority of people who think that owning is like the most important thing to them. So we have to help accommodate that.
Can I ask how old you are?
22.
Here's something that's very annoying to me. I don't know if this was like this for you. And maybe it was more for me also because I went to a prep school, but I don't think so. I think this is for everybody in my generation. So I'm 36. And one thing that I hear, especially conservatards, cry about is this idea that when we went to high school, they told us, go to college. Everyone has to go to college. One size fits all. We all go to college. And now, you know, all these centrists and all these whatever losers are like fighting on this idea. Like, no, it doesn't. You don't have to go to college. There's all these other things you could do. You don't have, you shouldn't do a one size fits all. But when it comes to home ownership in the new world in North America, it feels like that is the thing. Like if you don't own a home, you're like, people look down on you, like culturally. I don't know if Europeans understand that feeling as much, I'm sure that in Europe, if you in European countries, if you have a home, that's probably more prestigious, sure. But I don't think anybody like living in Paris or London or Stockholm or Copenhagen, if you're like, oh yeah, like I have a condo, or oh yeah, like I'm an apartment, I don't think people are like, ooh, that guy's kind of a loser. In the United States, people kind of have a tinge of that feeling. If you're like, oh, like I'm 36, like I have an apartment, it's like, ooh, you rent an apartment? What are you a loser? What's wrong with you? Like you basically live with your parents. And I think that culture needs to change. There can be times when owning a home is nice and it's okay, but the fact that like home ownership needs to be some sort of inevitability if you want to have a family or something, I think that's super toxic and cancerous, and I don't think that it needs to be the case. I think that's a uniquely American cringe weird thing.
Oh yeah, like I 100% agree. Like I don't think the debate should be whether or not like you rent or you own. I think the debate should be, or like how you talk to people about this. It should be like it's okay to have an apartment. You can own your apartment. Like that's totally fine. You can have a condo apartment, but like
True.
it shouldn't be like a single family house in a suburb. It should be like multi-family, dense like housing in that sort of sense, right? And that's obviously a big issue in Canada, is that like we have no housing at all. And so that's like maybe one of the ways of like how you get around that is like you just start densing people like more together, whether that's apartments or with
True.
different
Wait,
design houses from
I just got the sickest idea ever. What is this debate over? Is it over houses versus apartments, or is it over owning versus renting?
It's renting versus owning.
Okay, I should just buy a condo. That's like the best of
You
all the
should.
worlds. Holy
just become a
shit.
landlord,
Well,
like
that's too. I don't care about that. That's too much work. Are you? Oh, you're a strong liberal. You're happy with how the elections turned out?
Yeah, I campaigned for my local Liberal candidate. Unfortunately, didn't win. I live in like Saskatchewan, so
Saskatchewan, is that a province or is that a weird city in like Alberta?
it's a province in like the middle of Canada, right beside Alberta.
Okay, damn, you're way the fuck
It's
out
kind of
there.
like Nebraska if you think about it.
Yeah, I mean Alberta's kind of like Nebraska. Or I guess Alberta's more like Texas, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What else? What's next? What else you
Next?
got
Oh, I
for
don't
me?
know. I also got for you. I don't know. I think you should actually move to Canada and not the U.S.
Why? Why the fuck would I move to Canada?
Canada's just like a better country, or like I think the future is bright for Canada. Like, I know
Okay. We're gonna get back onto the debate
Okay,
topic.
sure.
Okay,
No.
Canada sucks. Okay, let's
Canada
be honest
sucks.
with ourselves here.
Wow. He just means Canada sucks because of the way that you guys treat your natives is unacceptable.
That's true. That's true.
I think you guys treat them like way worse than we do, but
Well, but at least
you guys don't
we're
even like acknowledge they exist, do they?
true. Yeah, you guys at least do your land acknowledgements. I'm sure that makes them feel way better.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess we should probably keep it to like housing, renting, and owning or whatever, right? But like, do you like disagree with like the fact that we need to like have more apartments or like have more dense housing in any of that sense?
Dense housing, I'm okay with, but housing and density in the United States seems to always go contradictory to each other. Like when people want houses in the United States, it's almost always single family homes.
Well, right. It's because like there's like an aspect of like privacy to that too. Like obviously, like depending on your apartment, you can either hear your neighbors walking around or like you can't. Like I can't hear people in my apartment, so that's good. But like, it's just always so like there's obviously should be competition for like apartments that like have the best possible thing, but not everybody can have that and not everybody can afford that, right? And I think they would rather have a shitty house than a shitty apartment. I think lots of people would rather have that.
Rather have a shitty house than a shitty apartment. That's probably true-ish. I just feel like there's so many downstream negative effects from having like people in shitty houses where
That's true too.
yeah.
But I don't
yeah.
like that's where like obviously government comes in to help, like maybe give like funding or like or maybe poor people or like poor people. I should say like less fortunate people who like buy a shitty home. Like maybe they should have like some sort of like condo association. So like they're not the ones who has to take care of like the lawn or like any like repairs or whatever, right? Like they still own their house, but like somebody else comes and manages like all these like extra. I guess it's like renting with extra steps in that sense, right? But I think the ownership is just like what's so core to what people want.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I also don't like the ownership aspect when you say quote what people want to, because it ends up creating this weird like generational expectation. It's probably true in Canada as well, because I think Canada and the US are siblings when it comes to culture. Like in America, people think that they own the right to have their entire lineage live in their house for the rest of existence. Like unironically, like if I grew up in this house, my kids should have this house, their kids, their kids, their kids, their kids. And I think it ends up being a big stifling thing to any kind of future development. I'm actually curious in Canada. I bet you do have it in Canada. I'm curious in Europe. Is gentrification a concept in Europe? Is it in Canada?
Oh yeah, like there's like neighborhoods in like in my city that are being like gentrified. Like they used to be pretty rundown neighborhoods, and they're trying to be more investment into those areas, and they're actually like very cool aspects of the city. Like it's way better, or like even downtown is being like gentrified to like just accommodate more people instead of people being out in like the
Because in the
Suburban
United
areas.
States, like I don't know if it must be the same in Canada. I don't know in Europe. In the United States, gentrification is literally like the worst word ever. Like you're basically, it's like saying the N word but with housing projects. Like gentrification is the worst thing ever. And it's strange to me because like what does it mean when you gentrify an area? It usually means that you are like improving the area like a billion different ways. But people don't like it because sometimes people that live there might be displaced. And it's like, well, are all of our decisions around housing and city planning and all that, are they built around the idea that whoever happens to be in an area, their entire lineage is going to be there for the rest of eternity? Like that just seems like a very restrictive and bad way to do, I guess, city planning.
I actually don't know like too many people who like have that like intergenerational household thing where like it's passed on to the next. It always seems like the kids move out, they go to a different city, or especially in Saskatchewan, like lots of the kids will move out to other provinces for job opportunities and that stuff, right? And their parents stay in that house until like they sell it for like retirement or whatever. So I don't really know that like the house passes down from generation to generation. It's usually like once the house is sold, that money will be passed down to the kids like through like their estate or whatever, right?
Destiny, if you want to go ahead and give a little closing, and then we'll give him the last word. Unfortunately, there was too much agreement that what happened, and
I mean, the
you
guy's
have
got a
been-
Klein and Carney book behind him. I mean, what are we gonna disagree
yeah.
on? You know?
I mean,
You were desperate for people, so I just thought I'd like volunteer and give help. So
no, thank you so much, Neith. Any last words that you have?
or was Destiny supposed to go first, or was I supposed
I'll
to
go first. You know,
Destiny.
I realized in the middle of this conversation, I should buy a condo.
You should.
I don't know why I haven't. That would be a really good idea. But yeah, and then yeah, go ahead.
Oh, if that's all you have to say, then
What was the
Alright.
central point of our disagreement? Fuck, what did you bring up?
I don't think we really disagreed on anything. But I think it was just like the investment in the community of like staying here, owning a house, and like it's about staying in the city and being loyal to the city rather than like having the option to move out. I think that's kind of where our disagreement was.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead and link the poll to see who won this one.
No, this chat. These guys are all just mortgageoids. They're all just homeowners.
True.
All right. Well, Destiny, you're just getting destroyed today. Okay, this segment's never going to happen again because Destiny is just going to actually retire afterwards. So, Neith, you are the winner of this debate.
Thanks.
Canada did not win though.
Canada did
It's
win.
always gonna win in the end.
You guys got this. Good
But
luck.
yes, thank you for coming on, Neith.
Yeah, no problem. I think you guys should do like more of this. Maybe pick better topics and like, or not better topics, but like ones that like encourage.
Well, I wanted to do a
more
really serious
nuanced
one, and then Hobbit
disagreement.
was like, "You should just write a meme article to f with everybody." And that'll be great.
I love the article, by the way.
I did not say that. We are going to have a very serious topic for the next one because, yeah. But
Fuck
thank
you.
you so much for your
Fuck you.
time, Neith.
Yeah, no problem.